How are you, sir?
Really well. Good to see you, brothers. What's
It's
going
good
on?
to see you too. How's
You
the
were
weather out
perfectly synced there. I mean, you two should be in some
there? We
kind of
have
group.
we have shows 8 and 10 p.m. Come watch us. It's magical. It's magical. First off, we want to thank you for doing our very first interview for the month of Black History, where we're giving flowers to our brothers and sisters of photography.
Yes.
And we're honored to have you as our first guest.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. Thank
So
you.
I think this is going to be absolutely amazing. We have a bunch of amazing talent lined up for the whole month of Black History. But I do have a question. Do you guys have Black History in London?
Yeah, we do. It's every October.
Oh, really?
So,
Oh.
yeah, I still never fully understood why it's not the same month globally, but different countries have that with all kinds of different movements. But we're October, so we had ours obviously last year.
Okay.
But I try and celebrate and participate in both the UK and US as much as I can.
Well, for us, and I don't know if I can speak for all my brothers and sisters, for us, every day is Black History Day. That's how I live it. Because it's like, why do you have 1 month dedicated to Black history and then 11 months of, is it white history? I don't know how that goes. So why can't we just have Black history every day of our lives?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Black History Month is a different thing for so many different people, right? I had a talk recently, and some black folk were saying that it's not actually for them. It's for those that haven't had that lived experience to listen, to learn, and to I'll say ignorance, is something that can be fixed, right?
Yes.
By education.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think a big part for a lot of people, Black History Month is for non-black people to walk a mile in our shoes.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
And give them that education.
They definitely need it across the board. Let me ask you a question. Should we go on Clubhouse and let them know we're having an interview here? Just start a page and say,
No, do this.
he says no, so I do what the boss says. We're gonna dive right in. You've made history,
Yes.
and I'm trying my best not to cry.
Oh, come on.
No. You made history, and by shooting one of the most iconic magazines in the world, and not only for the iconic magazine, you got the cover, and not just the cover, you got the coveted cover of the September issue.
Mm.
I want people to know, because I know you've talked about this before, but I want people to hear how that came about. And then we can go into your journey that took you from you picking up your camera to you shooting the cover of Vogue. So let's start with that. We're throwing the floor to you. Tell us how you got this cover.
I got it in a very unusual way, in a very organic way. Sometimes I believe you need to waltz with fate and let fate be your master, and pour your passion into what you do, and the universe will conspire to make magic happen. And what happened is, after the lynching, the murder of George Floyd, I felt very helpless, and I looked to my wife and said, I have no more tears. I'm dry. There's nothing. I can't weep anymore. What can I do? And she looked at me and she goes, look to your camera. Look to your camera. And I looked at this seemingly inanimate object, and I realized that it was going to help me deal with the trauma, and also help me find a way to focus in a seemingly changing world that my operating system wasn't fully comprehending. So I went out. After the death of George Floyd, there was this incredible wave of protests globally, and it arrived on the shores of the United Kingdom. And I was like, you know what? Let me take my camera. I had no agenda beyond feeling as a black man. Maybe the least I could do is bear witness, and be the custodian of truth for a moment that I knew was like no moment in my 43 years on earth that I'd ever lived through. So I went there not knowing if there'll be 5,000 people. And what I saw changed my life. I saw people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all races. It came out in London like London has never seen before, to march for the rights of people that look like you and me. And I started to shoot. And it's a very strange thing to shoot your own trauma, you know, to shoot every humiliation, every pain that you may have experienced in your own life. And I started posting these pictures like I always post. I don't really have any social media strategy on my page. I just post what I love. And it went pretty crazy pretty quickly. Edward Enninful, the editor-in-chief of British Vogue, who saw some of these pictures, did a few, you know, put it up on his own personal Instagram. Then a lot of hyper celebrities like Bella Hadid and Sarah Jessica Parker, Puff Daddy, blah, 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 were posting the images. And then Martin Luther King III, the son of Martin Luther King, made a big statement using one of my images. And that's
how did that feel?
It felt like a lesson to all of us to know that to try, even if you feel like you're alone on an island, planting the seeds of hope by trying, you never know what's going to grow out of those seeds. I had no access to the family of Martin Luther King, but somehow pictures that I took in London reached into his inner soul. And that made me realize how sacred the camera and the image can be if you wield it with purpose. So that's how I felt. I felt honored to have the privilege to be able to tell the story of this moment and have the family of Martin Luther King recognize something within my imagery.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
That's amazing. So
Deep.
let's go from Martin Luther King and let's turn that black car towards Vogue.
so off the back of the attention, the genius of Mr. Enningful is that he sees what we need before we realize we need it, you know. And in his relatively short tenure at British Vogue, he's repeatedly made history. I mean, this man has been putting key workers,
Yes.
postmen, nurses, doctors on the cover. He's been putting landscapes, and he is somebody who leaks empathy. He literally leaks it. It comes out of his sinews. And he saw in me the voice that was missing in that moment. And he basically commissioned a relatively unknown photographer to shoot. And if you can think of the options this man had for photographers,
he could have used us.
He could have used y'all. You know, it was, you know, and he did it over a Zoom call, you know, with COVID and everything else. And I basically focused for the rest of the call not to faint. And when I got off the call, my wife said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I suffer with imposter syndrome. I think you know this, and you know, I'm definitely neurodiverse in how my brain is wired. I'm heavily dyslexic, and I thought I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this. And the gravity for a fleeting moment of it all made me very, very unsure.
But do you realize you're worth it, right? You do realize that.
I realize we all are worth it, you know.
There you go.
And
the
other thing that I've learned in this process is that in the very depths of self-doubt, at the very bottom of that seemingly endless abyss of despair, lies light. And I found this ladder of light in my moment of self-doubt to pull myself into a place where I could shoot that cover and make sure that we, you know, the responsibility that was given to me by another black man to say, listen, I've opened the door. Now's your turn to walk in and show us what you can do. So I went and shot the cover. I had 2 assistants that were 2 black men. Most of the shoot was a combination of black men and women. And the 2 cover stars were black. So, you know, this was not a game. And the whole issue is about activism, you know, and it was a very brave thing for the editor-in-chief to do. And I am just proud to have played some small part in what I call his symphony of activism.
So let's go to the day of the shoot. How did all this come about? It's like, okay, I'm an activist. You shoot the style that you shoot, and then you go, okay, how did all of this come into being? Like, who picked the models? How were their mood boards, location?
So I mean, this is the even crazy thing. Again, I have to keep talking about the genius of this man. He picked an athlete called Marcus Rashford, who is, he's been fighting for the free school meals. So in the government system we have here, a lot of children that are living below or near the poverty line can't afford to literally eat. And he was one of those kids. And now as this multi-millionaire athlete, because he has that lived experience and that empathy, he lobbied the government and forced the British government to change their policy on free school meals.
I've been following that story as well.
So he was a cover star along with Adwa Aboa, who is an extraordinary model who spends a lot of her time lifting up women and girls who need to see people that look like her. She talks a lot about mental health, showcases vulnerability, which I love because somebody, a young woman like her, who in the old days would have this seemingly perfect life. That's not what she portrays. She lets everyone know that she's a human being. And that is a difference, could be the difference between things going very, very, very bad for a vulnerable young mind. So the combination of both of them, I thought, was incredibly telling of what Edward cares about and what he felt the world needed to see in that moment. And he just told me, Misan, do your thing, shoot how you like to shoot, and capture truth. And if you know about how I shoot, I look to to find the parts of yourself that you may be afraid to even look at and pull that out into my lens, and hopefully people will respond to that.
So let me ask this. So you didn't have crazy art directors around you and creative directors and everybody telling you need to shoot this, you need to shoot that?
No. We had creative directors, and we had Donna Wallace, extraordinary stylist, a black woman as well, that had styled the shoot beautifully. But in terms of how I shot it, how I lit it, it was all left to me, which again shows what happens if you lift, right? Yeah. This is a very public example of somebody lifting, believing that I have ability and saying, you go fly, kid, go fly.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I've interviewed a lot of people on them being the first. So we're in 2020, 2021, and we're still dealing with Black people dealing with firsts.
Yes.
So we had Tyler Mitchell for American Vogue. We had Loretta Houston for Sports Illustrated. We have you for British Vogue. Now, what makes this so amazing for us is when we see one of our people walk through the door, it's like us walking through the door. And upon doing that, you have a great responsibility on your shoulders because of that. Do you feel like it's too much of a burden on your shoulders? Because not only do you carry yourself, you carry us, and you carry everybody, every creative that looks like us. So when you walk in that door, we have to go, please do a good job. Please do a good job. Because if you don't kill it, we'll never get back in that door again. Did you feel that way?
My shoulders are broad. I'm serious, man. I've lived enough of life. I've seen so much of the slings and arrows that we all go through. And, yes, I have imposter syndrome, but when it came down to it, and I realized the gravity of this moment, it was the weight is so heavy of our lived experience, from little boys and little girls to where we are today. None of us have got away scot-free, not a single one of us. So when these moments come, my shoulders are broad.
Yeah, I'm trying my best not to cry. This is what you're doing to us. Because, I've been in.
And you see me. You know I'm accessible. It was very important to me that whatever happened to me, in terms of my platform and having all sorts of things come my way, that I must always remain the son that my mother raised. And I must always remember that I am no better than any of us. I've just been given the opportunity. So a big part of my life, for as long as I breathe, ongoing, is to make sure that that door the door that Edward opened never closes. Because I'm in the room now, and I can tell you there's a lot of real estate here. You know, we can all have food and lodging in this room. And I've also seen the top photographers in the world. And, you know, similar to what Michelle Obama said, where she said she's been in every powerful room and met every powerful man, and she hasn't seen anyone any better than her. Right? You know, a working class family from the south side of Chicago.
Exactly.
She made it into the White House. I was born in Calabar in Nigeria, right? And I strongly believe that a big part of responsibility, if you get given a platform, especially if you are a black man or woman, is to remain humble, right? Humility and empathy are the two cocktails I get high on all the time. And that's what I'm going to keep doing.
Wow.
So how has your life changed since this has occurred?
Yeah.
You know, it's
like you got the Academy Award of magazine covers. How has Mr. Harriman's life changed?
It's allowed me to force the issues I care about. You know, just last week, a personal project that I did, which was photographing black women that are all survivors of domestic violence, and that was published by Vogue. And those women have never been anywhere near any magazine, right? And now they're being published by Vogue. And, you know, Vogue is helping use their platform to raise money as a called Sister Space to try and save the building that they were in. That matters to me as much as any cover.
Wow.
You know, it just does. So I get to, you know, and then I was just shooting Kate Winslet the other day and shooting Lewis Hamilton the other day. And, you know, that's all amazing. But that allows me to continue having influence, you know?
Nice.
So it's that cocktail, that balance of doing great brand work, great editorial work, but forcing what I care about. The other thing I'm doing is I'm looking quite deeply into diversity and inclusivity in the corporate arena, because, you know, let's remember the reason I am sat here today in terms of you guys knowing of me is because there was a black leader in a well-known corporation, right? And from top down, if you look at companies, whether it's fashion, film, education, we need people in HR, we need people in marketing, in obviously diversity and inclusivity in the C-suite, shareholders, investors that have a lived experience, so they know how to cast the net further afield when they're looking for young men and women of color to be part of the tapestry of their culture. And that is exactly what Edward did. And I do a lot of consulting with my media business called What We See, where we look under the bonnet of very large companies and help them have a real understanding of what it means to have different voices. And for me, it isn't just black people. It's the whole spectrum of the gay and trans community. It is disabled people, both, you know, visible and non-visible disabilities. It is people that are neurodiverse, that you can't tell what's particularly wrong with them, but they're you know, their minds work differently. All of these people will add, not take away from any business that has a presence of mind to give them a shot.
It's funny. We were talking with you, Sai.
Yeah.
And we were talking about people of color, especially when the COVID epidemic started. And he had to, for lack of a better word, correct us, because we've always talking about people of color, people of color, people of color. And he told us, you realize you don't have a market on that corner.
Yeah, black people.
Black people don't have a market on the people of color. Yeah, just like you're saying, everybody's involved. And him being Asian, it's like, I'm a person of color.
Yeah, we never thought
and we're like, yeah, absolutely right. He said, you think we don't go through the same things you guys go through? And he wasn't trying to belittle what our experience is, but he was like, we have to rethink the way we think, because as you were saying, being inclusive with all of that, it's not just the blacks, it's the Asians, it's the Latins, it's the Middle Easterns, it's the Indians, as you added, it's the trans people, it's women. It's a whole inclusive thing.
Yeah.
So thank you for speaking on that. I'm sorry, I'll give the floor back to you.
And no one's asking for a handout. No one,
Exactly.
It's all about, if you have ability, then here's your shot. I mean, Dallas, one of the reasons I really agreed to do this with you is because you're supreme talent,
Thank
and
you.
and I, when I came across you, I was like, Jesus, man, how? You should be, and you hopefully will be a household name.
Thank you.
It's and you've dedicated your life to this craft. You've dedicated your life to the poetry of light, and to me, that is as worthy a cause as any. And so many young people are going to see your work and know, yeah, this is it. This is it. This is who I want to be because of you. And I am in awe of you, sir. It's I remember when I went onto your website, I was like, oh my God. It's and it takes very little for your life to completely change. So, let's just see what happens over the next few months and years with everyone that we're coming across, everyone we're trying to lift. I'm certainly trying to force the issue, as you know, on some of the things we're already working on, and I will continue to do so. But let me just be straight with you. If I didn't think your work was was good, I wouldn't do it because you're black.
Yeah.
That's not enough. You have to put in the hours, have the ability, and be that person that I know. If I make an introduction and you walk into a room with a corporation or whoever, they're gonna be blown away by you.
Well, thank you for that. I thank God for Clubhouse. I have to give it to them because I always wanted to meet you.
Yeah.
So when your name came up in Clubhouse, it was like, how many Misan Harriman are there? What's the before I clicked your name, I said, what's the likelihood that this is who I think it is? When I clicked on your name and things came up, I was like a little schoolgirl. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And not only was I able to click on your name, I was able to speak to you.
Yep.
And you were gracious enough to speak back because you didn't have to.
Yeah.
And then we were in rooms together and we had the same outlook and the same ideologies.
Absolutely.
And all that. Regardless if we shot for 1 year or 40 years, we had the same mindset. And regardless, whatever we were doing, we could have been doing music, we could have been writing poetry. We were like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what we love about you. So thank heavens for Clubhouse, because I have no idea how else I was going to get to you this easy.
Yeah, it's funny, the internet. Yeah, a lot of people complain about it, and it does have an ugly side, but it also connects us in a way. I call it intimacy at scale. Even with the Black Lives Matter movement, even with the anti-racist movement, the reality is people that are my mother's generation, they had to go through hell and not have this collective voice. If you're screaming saying this is not fair, this is not right, and yeah, you got a couple of friends that agree with you, that's not moving the needle. But
Right.
if you realize you have a sisterhood and a brotherhood of literally tens of millions of people that think, yeah, racism isn't so cool, it gives the movement so much oxygen. And that's what's happening in a microcosm with you and I, in terms of, it would have been very difficult to connect and hear your voice, hear what you stand for, without this thing called the information superhighway. So, we have to be also thankful and curate our experience online. The internet, it's like what you eat, right? Everyone says you are what you eat. I think you really are what you consume. So, if you want to listen to poptastic music because it kind of feels nice on the radio, that's fine. But I think you need to sit down and listen to some Nina Simone, some Sarah Vaughan, some Billy, some Ella, and then let your soul tell you what they want to hear. I want to give people optionality in what they put into their minds, and that's what we're trying to do with the advice you're giving so many young photographers.
Even though they decide to fight it, but yes.
Yeah, I know. You got to keep trying, right?
I always got to keep trying.
Yeah.
Because of who you are, because of what you look like, you've given voice to young photographers out there, because back in the days, let's say 15, 20 years ago, even though we had talented photographers of color, no one ever thought they can ever shoot for the cover of Vogue. So now, because of you, because of Tyler, you guys have opened the door to say, yes, a person like me can command a shoot.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh my God, I forgot about Dario Calmise as well, who shot
Yep.
Viola
Vanity
Davis, my
Fair.
guy. And we used to run around the same studios together. So when I saw his name, I was like, what's the likelihood this is the same one? So I clicked on his name, and it's like, people now I can say to younger people, like Dave's nephew lives with us, I can say to him now, you can be anything you want.
Yeah.
You can even be the president of the United States. And I can say it, and I can mean it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
not something that's out of reach, some pie in the sky sort of thing. So now I can say to photographers, if you really, really want this, you can get it. It's not impossible anymore. So on behalf
And when you
of
get there,
all
when
Black
you get
photographers,
there,
we thank you.
no, look, I'm a messenger, really. One of my messages is that when you get there, when you get to this place, that's when you need to have the focus. You know, I'm really trying my best to do the work with grace and humility, because one of the things that disturbs me is a lot of my brothers and sisters, whether it's athletes, musicians, when they get to a place where they're relatively well known, they can retrench and celebrate the obvious material benefits of success, and that doesn't really help anyone. I'm not interested in talking about the financial benefits or the fact that I'm more well known. I'm interested in if you have my attention, I want to make sure you understand what inspired me, so you can try and go down that road less traveled, right? I want you to read about Monita's Sleep journey. I want you to understand how he was the first Black photographer to win a Pulitzer. I want you to understand how, Coretta Scott King demanded him to be at the funeral because there weren't going to be any Black photographers there. I want you to look at the most extraordinary work of the Fontanelli family, shot by Gordon Parks, showing poverty in a visceral way that I sometimes I'm afraid to even look at those images. Look at that power, right? I want you to look at Irvin Penn, Norman Parkinson, Cecil Beaton, Terry O'Neill, all of them, Dorothea Lange, Sally Mann, Eve Arnold. These are all the people that have constructed my idea of what you can do with the still image. I am not interested when someone asks me, so how can I get some money with the camera?
No, oh my God.
The conversation has ended at the question mark.
Yeah.
Educate yourself, and the money will follow. Show your passion, and you will find your tribe, always.
The very first day that I met Dallas, the very first day, we met at Barnes and Noble's,
which is a giant bookstore out here.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
So we pulled out all these different photographers. Like, we had stacks of books in Barnes and Nobles, and we just were going through it. And we went through the history of photographers and things that caught my eye. And literally, he was introducing me. We call him my grandfather photographers. He literally was introducing me to my grandfather photographers.
Practically all the names you said.
Yeah, and understanding where we come from, and understanding why it's important, and just style and everything,
and responsibility.
So every time, before COVID, literally on a board day, we'll go to Barnes and Nobles, and we still study to this day.
Or museums.
And we still study to this day, and still go. And anybody, like you said, we always pay it forward and tell them, come on, look, let's do this. Let me show you. Let me introduce you to your grandfather, so you can, and grandmother photographer, so you can understand where we come from, so we can keep pushing education, so you'll know where you're going.
And now we get to talk about you.
Yeah, we get to talk about you. Now you're
on the list. It's funny, when we do the workshops, I introduce a lot of photographers to unknown talent.
Yes.
And one of the photos that I always use is the bread line by Gordon Parks.
Yeah.
The woman's reaching through the window.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't have that photograph on my screen and talk about it without crying.
Because you feel it. It's a feeling.
I can't talk about it because the emotion that it invokes in you, just like we're looking at your work, you invoke an emotion. and we understand it. And you haven't been shooting long. So my question is, how did you do it?
Yeah. Where did it come from?
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
You know, I only picked up a camera 3.5 years ago, but my eye has been training itself really from birth. I was a kid that was obsessed with the moving and still image, to the point where at school, everyone from the teachers to the students would say, "Hey, what film should we watch? You know, what song should we listen to?" I would have scrapbooks of scenes in films that would move me, whether it's Color Purple, Boys in the Hood, Love Jones, you name
Singing
it.
in the Rain.
You know, absolutely. You know, and I realized that it was my way of protecting myself from the world when it felt too big. I found my North Star, my safe harbor, in the notes of songs, in the pages of books, and in the absolute, you know, visceral storytelling of the still image. So, you know, I would say that yes, I only picked up the camera, but I've always been training my eye, watching every documentary, reading every photo book that I can, looking at, you know, early Annie Leibovitz when she was with Susan Sontag, and you know how amazing her work was then.
Oh my
you
God,
know,
yes.
it's looking at the wartime photography of Don McCullum, but also music and film helped me as a photographer. You know, I remember you know, when I first saw Love Jones, and Nia Long's character, you know, had the camera, and they were talking about Gordon Parks in the film, and they play in the movie and in the soundtrack, you know, in a Sentimental Mood by Duke Ellington, which is one of those songs I listen to before I shoot big shoots.
Okay.
It settles my soul to a place where I'm like, absolute calmness.
Yes.
Absolute calmness. And the camera almost turns to look at me saying, "What are you waiting for? Let's go."
Mine is classical music.
Yeah, classical music.
That one, mate.
I put on Beethoven and Mozart, and it gets me. It centers me, and it gets me there. Because I know for the next few hours I'm going to be listening to Beyonce, and there's nothing on Beyonce, but I need to cleanse my palate.
So he gets the before, I get the during. So when Beyonce playing, I'm happy.
He's happy, and at the end we close the show with Mozart.
Yeah. No, look, all of those things. That's why I all send out my links of songs, of, you know, even scenes. You know, I did a room recently about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and you know, that scene where, you know, Will's father disappoints him, and you know, James Avery, may he rest in peace, and he was like a father figure to all of us. You know, just think of growing up and having that character. As I've got older, I've realized how important people like him, and of course our queen, Miss Tyson. You know, she was the grandmother, the auntie that we all needed. You know, these are people that were the soft pillows that we needed as a trauma was knocking us down. And all of this, I swear to God, all of this is linked to how you become a photographer, how you become a retoucher, how you become a dancer, how you cook your food. Look back at Langston Hughes' words. If you don't know who Langston Hughes is, I know you guys do, many people don't. Read those words. All of this is designed to help us. So there's another university out there that is in the work of the people whose shoulders we stand on. And that has been how I've got to where I've got to.
So let me explain to you. You know, he does these small rooms.
I know.
And you'll say, okay, you say, we're going to play Nina Simone, blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about it.
Poetry. You were playing poetry for one.
Yeah, poetry. Some Bill Withers, you know, I did one of Bill Withers.
Exactly.
You know, so just, and I'm multi-genre. I love, you know, musical, Les Mis, all those kind of things as much. I don't have any niche at all. Absolutely.
Any given time, he's playing Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, so randomly I play Sweeney Todd.
So it'll be a Beyonce song, followed by Cardi B, and then
Sweeney Todd, and then Jay-Z, and then some classical music.
And then Leontine Price. It's like...
Yeah, so just keep going back and forth.
But to me, I mean, how amazing is that? I mean, you are the kind of people I'd love to be stuck on a desert island with, because it's interesting.
Exactly.
You know, and also you're not afraid to show vulnerability. And I think
Yeah,
with
right.
black men in particular, I really push this. You know, I push a lot of black men. I mentor in prisons, and I take you know, my iPad in when I'm allowed to, and I just show them scenes, all the scenes and songs that have broken me, and it's incredible. You know, you see this brother that, you know, chest just tough, and the, you know,
Of course.
and they're within minutes they're babies on the floor
Yeah,
because all that
Because
toughness
nobody
is from
because
trauma,
nobody
right?
listened to them.
Yeah.
yeah,
They never had a voice, so they had to create that tough exterior.
Yeah.
And under that tough exterior, you have the baby that nobody
Mhm.
ever listened to.
yeah.
So they reach out, they lash out, they react, and that's what got them in their situations. If only somebody would have listened to them at the right part of their lives, if
Mhm.
somebody would have put a camera in their hand at
Mhm.
some point,
Yeah.
they could have changed their lives.
Or a paintbrush.
Yeah.
Or a paintbrush, right?
Something
Yeah.
like it's art is therapeutic, and it helps you grow, and it helps you figure things out. And a lot of where I come from, like I can tell every time I do something major, I literally say to myself, "Oh my God, this project kid, this little kid from the projects is here."
Mhm.
Doing this, whatever it is, and I always think that I'm worthy. It's not that I'm thinking I'm worthy. It's just always surprising. Like, how did I get here?
Mhm.
It's like, okay, I get it, but it's always surprising to me. It
Like both
surprises
of
me
you,
every
you
time.
deserve to be where you
I
are.
deserve to
But
be here, but it's
both
always
of you
surprising.
are empaths. You know, empathy is a really interesting thing because we're not born with a finite amount of empathy as human beings. We have to feed it. So if you go through life and not feed the empathy within you, it doesn't disappear, but it becomes very hard to find within yourself. You know, a prime example is, you know, the former president of the United States, a man of absolutely zero empathy. And, you know, he never fed it. And
Right.
he had a father that also didn't feed it. It
Yeah,
never grew. So I'm not defending this man, but he was a walking wounded for a long time. Certainly
Yes.
not a man that should be leading, you know, the most powerful modern nation in the world.
yeah,
And on the other side, if you feed your empathy, this is the really important bit, don't protect it like you don't have enough to go around, right? A lot of people will say, you know, they'll be empathetic to their grandma, to their children, to their lovers, right? And
Right.
they're like, I got too much shit going. I ain't got time for it. I don't want to save the world.
Right.
No, there's enough within you to go around, and everything that you give out, right? I promise you, it comes back in bucket loads,
yes,
bucket loads, you know.
yes,
And this isn't about religion. Right? This is beyond it. This is our inner souls,
yes,
right? This is our inner souls
yes.
saying, let's do right whilst we are living and breathing. And it's a very simple thing. Just be kind. I can't, you know, I don't care about what background you are, what politics that you have. Being kind is a really, really simple thing to do.
Oh my God,
And being truthful.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people aren't truthful.
I go by that all the time. Like literally, it takes nothing. I tell people, it takes nothing for you to be nice. It takes nothing for you to listen to that story. I like everybody always. Whenever I get asked questions like, "How did you get? Well, how did you get in these rooms?" It's like I was nice. I was nice to someone, and I listened,
You
and I
listen.
gave back. And if I could help, I helped. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, you learn a lot from people just by listening. So you'll
Mm-hmm.
always see me, and I won't say anything. I'll just be listening. And then when
Mm-hmm.
it's my turn to talk, I'll say what I need to say, and I'll go back to listening.
He
But
lets me be the mouthpiece
yeah, he
to
talks.
get the
He'll
information.
talk, and I say, this person needs blah
But
blah
you
blah.
know, listening is it's a funny thing because we talk about listening as if it isn't seeing. When you listen to someone, you're fundamentally telling them that you see them.
Yes.
And so many of us walking wounded, so many of us that are dealing with serious anxiety is because we don't feel like we are being seen,
Yes.
even sometimes by the people that we love. So
Yeah.
Right.
listening is the ultimate weapon.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I agree. It's how I got into all these different spaces by just allowing myself to just listen, and I get close to people just by sitting there and I just talk, let them talk, and then ask questions because I actually care. Like if you was to mention something and I'll come back and say, "Oh, what happened to blah 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 blah?" And they be like, "Oh,
Oh, you was
You
listening.
was really. So then people, I don't know. I find I'm happy with my connections because I make so many connections with good people just by listening and being present. Because that's another thing that a lot of us aren't. They're not present. So when they talk to me, I put my phone down and we talk.
We'll be in the moment.
We'll be
Right.
in the moment. When you talk to me, you ask me questions, or somebody hit me in the DM, I'll sit there. If I'm doing something, I say, "Give me one moment," because I need to give you my full attention, and I'll ask, answer the questions, or if they want links, I'll send the links. I'll tell them this is the way I got it. I don't know if it's the best way, but this is what I did. It may work for you. But I get all of my connections and my friendships listening and telling people, and like you said, it comes back in bucket loads, and people. I can go in a lot of spaces just because I'm just cool and just being nice. Like it gets me everywhere. So yeah.
I'm glad you said that. When you speak, what do you want us to listen to?
I want you to listen to the fact that you've managed to fight your way into a place where your voice has arrived. And your voice has arrived in a moment where we need it more than ever. I'm talking to all of us, not just both of you and anyone listening. We need our own voices to tell stories that are sincere, that are vulnerable. I'll say it again, that are vulnerable, because none of us, especially after the year we just had in 2020, are okay. And it is okay to not be okay.
Exactly.
So let's stop BSing and talking about how successful we are. And let's just say, you know what, I'm trying my best and I hope that's enough. And how are you doing? And you're probably trying your best. And let's just swap notes and keep walking. We are right now swimming upstream in stormy weathers. So we need to steady our sails and look at the horizon. And we must do that together in case somebody falls and needs to be pulled up.
Wow. You have children, right?
I have 2 little girls.
Okay.
Nice.
Because of what you've done, you've even changed the world for them. What are you going to bestow on them? What are you going to bestow on them as your legacy? What would you want them to walk away with? Like, my father is blah, blah, blah.
My father wasn't afraid to take the road less traveled. My father wasn't afraid to, in later life, try and find himself. My father wasn't afraid to let anyone that's willing to listen know that he's just as scared and just as unsure as you are. And for that, I have more hope in my life as a young woman. And I hope, my middle name is Hope, by the way, on my passport. It was my father's first name. And I hope that my 2 daughters will store this humility and empathy that I hope to instill on them, and walk through life with the opportunities that we may not have had, right? But have the humility to help the downtrodden, because there's always going to be downtrodden. Mankind is that way, and whether it's in their time, it may not be Black people, it may be all sorts of other people that have been beaten down by socioeconomic constructs. Just give a damn, and don't believe you are the second coming if you become rich or famous, right? Remember that when you're born, you're an empty vessel to be filled, right? So I want my children to be those kind of women, and being women as well. It's even more important for them to never feel that they are any lesser than the opposite sex and everything in between. I cannot stand the fact that in every room that I go into, I'm not just the only person that looks like me. I barely see any women of any type of diversity in those rooms as well. So, as a father of 2, as a girl dad, I've got to fight for young women to make sure they have all the opportunity and chances that they deserve, just as much as Black people.
Wow.
I didn't expect it to go this way, but I'm
Nope,
glad.
but I'm happy you
glad.
did.
So,
well, you're asking the questions.
yeah, exactly.
Great.
I'm so glad you've done this. So now we're gonna dust this stuff off, and we're gonna talk to the gearheads that are in the room, because they're all gonna want to know, what does Misan shoot with? We're not gonna do questions.
Okay.
But what does Misan shoot with? What is his favorite camera?
Yeah.
What is his go-to lens? So we're gonna throw that out for all the gearheads out there, because I know they're gonna ask these questions of me. So we're gonna give you the floor.
Sure.
What do you like to shoot with? What's in your camera bag?
Okay, I shoot mainly with Leica cameras,
Nice.
and you know, I am an ambassador for Leica.
Nice.
But you know, I know not everyone can afford those. And before I was shooting with Leica, I started with Fuji, and because I'm very dyslexic, I really struggle with menu systems in like the Sony camera. It just stresses me out, and I like the ergonomics. You know, I just need my shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, and I start shooting. So
Isn't it like talking to yourself?
and I love primes, so I do have a couple of zooms, but I generally shoot with telephoto primes. You know, anything from 75, 85, 90, 135. I have quite big glass that I love compression, yeah, that's really what I do. For medium format, I'm using the GFX 100, which is a bit of a beast of a camera. I can carry it around and not use a tripod with medium format, which blows my mind, because you know, in the old days you have like a 40 grand phase 1 system, and the motion blur on that, if you even took it off, if you take it off a tripod, I mean,
it's 10 pounds in your hand.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I shoot medium format GFX, but in general, my weapons of choice are two Leica SLs with like a 75 and a 90, and I try and make magic happen.
So let's talk about your ambassadorship. How did that come about?
Again, it's all been very organic. You know, they came across my civil rights work, and a lot of great photographers that shoot in that photojournalistic style are shooting on Leicas. I think Lovelli's is listening. He's a legendary.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's a Leica man as well. You know, so we kind of I think we like the simplicity of it. We like the fact that they can survive wars, basically. And frankly speaking, they're not that much cheaper if you're talking about the bodies these days as like new Sony bodies, you know, and you can get those Sigma lenses, which I love, that are much cheaper than Leica glass and still very good. So, you know, I always say, if you're on the market for like a new Sony A7 whatever, or the A1, I mean, it could be cheaper to get yourself an SL by Leica and get that Sigma 1.4, get that new 85 Sigma, and then get that Bokeh Master, the 105, right?
And you sound like a gearhead? So there's a secret gearhead in there.
Oh, yeah. A little.
Because, you know, when we're in some of these rooms, people are constantly asking us about gear, and I just go.
A lot of times we don't know. Like, literally, I being the younger generation, I always go back to old cameras. So they like, oh, the new Sony. I'm like,
he's running around with a Hasselblad like 500, you know.
Yeah,
but that's still extraordinary camera. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And going back, I like old stuff for me, because it's a different quality.
Because the old man taught him.
Shut up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different
let him believe that. You know?
Yeah, let me live, right? Let me live a little bit.
But yeah, man. Oh man, this is incredible.
This has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Is there any parting words you want to give before you leave us?
No, I mean, I would say, you know, I'm really concerned. You know, I know we're living in a global pandemic, but I'm actually a little bit more concerned about the mental health epidemic that's going to be upon us off the back of everything. So yeah, I would say just check in on your people, man.
Yeah.
And it can be iMessage, WhatsApp, it can be an email, it doesn't have to be a phone call. Just check in. And you know, when you say, "Are you okay?" and they say, "Yeah," ask again.
Because you know they're lying. There's a phrase I learned.
You know.
Don't look at them when they say they're okay, because they're not.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
And the other thing that's really powerful these days is voice notes. because it's not super intrusive. Like, they're not committing to having to speak with you in that moment. And there's some of my friends that are not doing so well. I leave them a lot of voice notes, and they really appreciate it. And I also appreciate it when people send me voice notes. So it's a simple thing, but it does allow you to just check in on others. And that's what I want to part with. Just check in on your people and keep shooting. If you're not shooting, keep reading about those that have shot before us. And, you know, if you DM me, I will send you a link of all the documentaries and photographers
That was our very first interaction.
Yep.
And I thank you for that.
My pleasure.
I want to say thank you because
Thank you so much.
I can comfortably call you a friend.
Yes.
Look, as soon as America opens, I think we'll be seeing much more of each other.
Absolutely.
And we remain safe. I'm just recovered from COVID. It's a real thing, my black people. It's not some apparition from. It's real. So please, that's the last thing I'll say as well. Don't take any unnecessary risks. We can end up having serious health issues. I have high blood pressure. If you have diabetes, don't commit to a shoot for $1 million. It's not worth it. Okay? So just take your time, wait for that vaccine, and then, you know, there are plenty more shoots and stories that will find themselves to you.
Thank you so much.
That's where we're going to leave off, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a great honor, truly.
It's a great honor for us. You have a wonderful night, and I'm
sir.
going to see you on Clubhouse.
All right. See you, brother.
Later.
Take care.
Have a good day.